Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this free webinar presented to you by Healthy Teen Network. We're so glad that you've been able to take the time to join us. We're very excited about today's webinar for a number of reasons. One is we are focusing on celebrating young parents, and we're really happy to have the esteemed panel that we have with us today who are going to talk about how they were able to create days that celebrate teen parents and the ways that they should be celebrated in their states of New Mexico and California. And for those who don't know or don't remember, Healthy Teen Network is the ancestor, so to speak, of NOAP, the National Organization on Adolescent Pregnancy and Parenting. We were founded in 1979 to support those folks who were working with pregnant and parenting teens in the United States, and we still feel very strongly about standing behind this population. We've done a lot of work in framing. We've done a lot of work to try and bring more dignity in our language and in our approaches, and we couldn't be more excited to be sharing the work that's gone even further that this panelist is bringing to you today. So our panelist today is Denisha Cardena. Denisha is the policy director at Young Women United. Young Women United leads policy change and community organizing by and for women and people of color. They build top policy toward growing educational equity for expectant parenting teens, and they work to dismantle teen pregnancy prevention. Denisha is a proud New Mexican and daughter of young parents. We also have with us today Ana Suzette Valladares. Ana is the Director of Research at the California Latinas for Reproductive Justice, and is responsible for coordinating their research activities and projects, including the Justice for Young Families initiative, which champions all young people's rights to self-determination and bodily autonomy. We also have with us today Alia Garcia, who is a fierce young parent advocate and has been part of the California Latinas for Reproductive Justice Young Parent Leaders Council since 2014. Alia continues to spearhead their Justice for Young Families initiative to uphold the dignity, self-determination, and bodily autonomy of young people by sharing her story to advocate for policies that will directly impact young parents in California. And last but certainly not least, we have with us Mary Louise Cootie, who is one of the No Teen Shame founding mothers and who worked for New Mexico grads for the past 10 years to support expectant and parenting teens in schools across New Mexico. Though she is no longer a teen mother, she will always identify as a teen mother, advocating to support young families nationwide. So we thank the four of you for being here to share your stories today, and we hope that by the end, participants who are listening will be motivated and enabled to also consider developing an advocacy day for teen parents in their own states. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Pat. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Let me just get my screen set up. Yes, so hello all. As I was introduced, my name is Denisha Cardena, and I am the Policy Director at Young Women United. And as Pat introduced us, and let me minimize this quickly. Young Women United leads policy change and community organizing work by and for women of color here in New Mexico. And we see that work as building communities where all people have access to the information, education, and resources we need to make real decisions about our own bodies and lives. And we also love social media, so I have our handles there if you guys want to tweet or Facebook along. So, and I'll just mention this really briefly, Young Women United works around a whole host of issue areas, including improving access to a full range of birthing options and centering midwifery models of care, improving access to reproductive health care like abortion and contraception, working to decriminalize substance use in pregnancy, working with young LGBTQ people around their mental health, and as Deb mentioned, building educational equity for young parents. And I know in this webinar format that it's hard for folks to participate on and off. So I usually ask questions around this image, but This is an image from the National Campaign to Prevent Teen and Unplanned Pregnancy. And it says the United States costs of teen childbearing. And I often ask people, what do you think the costs are that are associated with this huge number, 9.4 billion? And people often say, oh, maybe it's Medicaid or food stamps or, things that people could use to support young families. And I often respond, well, that would be great, because that would mean we would be actually getting families the resources they need. But unfortunately, this is a much more sinister number. The majority of the amount calculated in this figure is lost tax revenue. The National Campaign and our state-based legislators and all of the folks that calculate these numbers are making a determination that young families will be much less likely to graduate high school and therefore produce less tax revenue over their lifetime. This amount also includes the cost that it would be to incarcerate the children of young parents. And so when Young Women United was looking at this work, and some of our youth organizers, we have a group of youth organizers 13 to 19, wanted to do work around why young women are dropping out of high school, they started to look at the rates of teen pregnancy. And so they did find that many young parents, many young families, young women and men were dropping out of high school because of pregnancy. But then when we started to dive further, dive a little deeper, we really thought to ourselves, this model of teen pregnancy prevention relies on some pretty negative stereotypes that, once you become a young parent, your life is over. And you can see it in examples like this. So the image on your right, I'm twice as likely not to graduate high school because you had me as a teen. And it sort of has this baby crying, and the kids of teen moms are less likely to graduate. And, on our left, the college checklist that has pens and pencils and your laptop, but do you really want a baby? And, these sort of stigmatizing images, well, it's proven they do very little to reduce rates of teen pregnancy, but also they can have really negative impacts on the lives of young families. Young parents are less likely to seek prenatal care, and we see a definite correlation between these types of shaming images and the kind of care that young people feel entitled to seek. So I'm just using this to set up as a frame of why we need a culture shift around how we talk about young families. I'll just share really briefly, Young Women United has a separate body of work around dismantling teen pregnancy prevention that breaks down some of these myths around the cost of teen pregnancy, around the success of young families, and what really young families can do. And that is a whole different webinar, but I encourage folks to check that out, and you can find the report on our website if you are interested. And the real core of that is that we have to address the underlying causes of the challenges young families face instead of perpetuating misconceptions that teen pregnancy is a problem to be prevented. So given all that, Young Women United really start to say, well, how do we shift this? Stigma isn't something that you can change with a state law. It's not something that changes overnight. And so we started to delve deeper into culture shift. And someone that's central to my learning around culture shift is the artist Fabiana Rodriguez. She's pictured here, and she's also one of the co-founders of Culture Strike, a group of artists working towards social change. And she really says that artists are central, not peripheral, to social change. And just to look at this diagram really quickly from Van Jones, part of Culture Shift also is about looking at this methodology. So, if we're working as lobbyists or working to change state law within our state houses, we're looking at talking to our elected officials who are elites, and we're making action. Many of us on this webinar, I think, have been often involved in the outside. So we have a lot of people in our communities mobilized to create change. We're ready to go. But we are sort of still on the outside of those things. So this is looking firmly at the purple circle here. So the heart. What is it about ideas and the masses that artists can do so much better than the rest of us? So this is saying, Jackie Robinson started playing baseball and desegregated baseball. years before we had Brown versus Board, or we saw Ellen DeGeneres on TV and coming out in a really brave and profound way before years and years before we saw legalized gay marriage. So culture shift is a way of changing our culture to make sure everyone can live the lives that they need to. And we really decided we wanted to do that around how young families were supported in our state. So we had done some focus groups with the ACLU of New Mexico to look at educational issues that young families were facing. And after we did that, we got a lot of great momentum, and we had created a lot of relationship and partnership with some of the young families in that work. And we said, what do we want to do next? And this culture shift moment came for us. So we gathered and, with these young families in Albuquerque and across our rural state, decided to write a state memorial in support of young families. And in that process, we worked with young families of all different generations. Like, I love how Mary Louise always says she's no longer a teen mom, but will always be one. And like I said in my intro, I also am the daughter of a young father. My dad was 19 when he had my sister, and we're in this slide picture too, but we started to work with young families, with elders, with people of all different ages to say, this is something we're going to do in the state of New Mexico. We don't have to buy into these negative stereotypes, and we can support young families. And we're able to gather all sorts of folks to do that. And the actual memorial we wrote, it was actually, quite beautiful and radical, and addressed a lot of different points. So at its core, the memorial stated that all families deserve respect, trust, and recognition. And talked about some of the realities that young parents are facing in New Mexico, that they're taking care of children and learning to balance responsibilities like school, families, and relationships. It really pointed to this stigma that many young families are facing. So the generational violence of stigma and shame placed on young families increases stress on young parents, leaving the families vulnerable and pushed to the margins. And it really talked about what we would need to create meaningful change. So the positive lives of young people are rooted in equal access to educational opportunities, living wage jobs, affordable healthcare, safe neighborhoods. And part of this was really saying, and I think so many of us have heard this all over time, and especially people who are parents, no one at any age is really prepared to become a parent, and it's really just this negative stigma that's addressed at young families that says anytime you make a mistake it's because of your age, whereas we all know families of different ages have to figure out all these things and how to best navigate their own lives. So we were able to pass this memorial. We had a great sponsor from the southern part of the state really champion this. She really thought it was important to her community, and throughout this process we had young parents coming up to the state capitol. We were able to partner with the New Mexico Grads Program to get over 50 young parents up to the Capitol talking to their legislators about why this bill was important. And we really had a lot of elected officials sort of coming out as young parents or children of young parents. Our then Senate leader at the time sat with that group of 50 young parents and told them that his mother had been a teen mom, and she had just worked her butt off to do everything she could for him. And he was able to go to law school. He was the Senate majority leader. He had done all these incredible things with his life, and he ended up breaking down in tears on the floor, saying, I've never really acknowledged everything that my mother faced and what she had to do to come to this point. And for us, that's at the core of culture shift. Saying we can break down these systems, we can break down these stigmas. It's an uphill battle, but this is one of the first steps in how we do that. So we passed that memorial in 2012, Senate Memorial 25, and it established August 25th as the New Mexico Day in recognition of young parents. And you can see this. We, in our collaboration with artists, have also created a lot of beautiful imagery, and I think that in itself is really meaningful. A lot of young parents have now seen these images in their classrooms or at health centers, and can start to feel that culture change in their own lives. And then, obviously, because the day was established, we have to celebrate that. So this is an image from our first day in recognition of young parents. We had this great celebration in the park where all sorts of different people with resources to support young families came up and set up tents. And we just had fun. We had piñatas, we had face painting, clowns, I think all sorts of different things. And since 2012, we have continued to celebrate Young Parents Day across our rural state and in different locations in New Mexico. We know that culture shift and policy change go hand in hand. So after we had created all that great momentum and change around young families, we wanted to know what was next. So we're really thinking about how culture shift is rain-readying the crops. So if we possibly would have introduced a law to shift policy right away without creating that work around what it meant to change the dialogue around young families, we likely would have been less successful. So then again, we worked with young families, our partners at GRADS, Mary Louise, and others to work on House Bill 300. And this created the state's the first policy in the country to create an excused absence policy for expectant and parenting students in New Mexico schools at the statewide level. And this really came out of work with young families. We said, what are some of the most profound things impacting your lives around education? And we heard that in some school districts, teachers and administrators were incredibly supportive and, would even drive to the hospital to take young mothers their homework or, ask how they could further support a family. And then we heard of some teachers that would say, this is your fault. You should live up. You need to be able to take responsibilities for the decisions that you've made. So I'm not going to give you homework. And what that meant is that, young mothers, young fathers were falling further and further behind on their work and, would end up dropping out of school. And, we just thought that was an absolute shame that our New Mexico schools need to be able to serve young people of all kinds, and that includes young families and young parents. So this bill, and when we show this to people, they think 10 days. How could that be enough? I got 3 months of maternity leave when I had my kid, and we established this as just a start, and said that school districts could go above and beyond this, but wanted to have at least some standard policy on the books. So these are just some of the details, and one of the things that was most important to me is that we wrote this law in a gender-neutral method. So that means that dads could also get excused to go to prenatal appointments, and also meant that if there are parents parenting in same-gender relationships, or if there are gender non-conforming parents, that this law would also apply to them too. And that's just a point of equity for us as well. Young lesbian women, young queer women actually have higher rates of teen pregnancy, and so we wanted to say that this needs to be a law that fits all types of people with different identities and family formations. And since then, we've just been working to organize with young parents on different issues and alongside this law. These are photos from some of our other celebrations for Young Parents Day. And then here in the bottom left corner, these are 4 moms that we worked with in Los Lunas, New Mexico. And they had all, unfortunately, had stories of challenges with their school district. One of the young women, Karina, had just had her baby, but the standardized testing period had come up, and she was forced, even though she had had a C-section, was forced to go back to school and take her standardized test. So this issue was incredibly important to her, and we were able to work with them, bring them on as paid interns for a summer to talk to their own school district about why this policy mattered. And we've continued to do that over the years, and continue to work with young families to see how this policy can be better implemented. I'll talk a little bit more later about our efforts around Young Parents Day and how that continues, and we are excited to have all of you join us soon. I am not sure where we have Elena next. I think we might have lost her, seems like. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about no teen shame. Oh, there we are. Sorry.
Sorry. But I was pressing on the wrong button apparently. So my apologies, everyone. Good morning. Good morning here in California, afternoon in other parts of the state and anywhere else you all are watching us. Thank you again. We're super excited to be on this panel. And I'm just going to introduce a little bit about our work here at CLRJ, California Latinas Reproductive Justice, and also our Justice for Young Families initiative. So I think, can you all see me? Okay. So let me move to the next slide. Okay, so real quickly, so about CLRJ. So we are, California Latinas Reproductive Justice is the only Latina-led reproductive justice organization here in California that specifically addresses Latinas, Latinx, and Latinos reproductive health, rights, and justice. We are a statewide organization, and we really advance our reproductive rights through an intersectional and social justice and human rights framework. And we're very committed to honoring the experiences of our Latina, Latinx, Latino communities, to uphold our dignity, our bodies, our sexuality, and our families. And one of the strategies we use to do that is we build power and cultivate leadership through community education, policy advocacy, and community-informed research. Now, when we talk about, our bodies, our sexuality, our families, and our dignity, this means all of us, right? All of us in California. And so this is why, for us, it's really important to amplify that young people should also be included when we talk about, like, everybody here in California. A lot of times, because of laws, because they're minors, because of their age, they're not respected in the same way. And so this is why for the past 7 years, since 2010, we have launched our Justice for Young Families initiative. And basically, everything that Denicia said, right, about culture shift and how that really takes a really long time, because in culture shift, it's important to engage everyone. And by everyone, we're talking about not just the young people themselves, community members, partners. There has to be a lot of alliance building, and obviously the policymakers, right, in order to really ensure that, whatever is in place is supportive of young people. So this is a long-term initiative, and, our statement is that we champion young people's rights to self-determination and bodily autonomy, including their decisions about whether or not to become parents, as well as their right to parent the children they have within a supportive environment. So J for YF promotes the health, equity, opportunity, and dignity of young families and is directly informed by the experiences of young parents as well as by the individuals that serve them. And for us, when we talk about young parents, we also want to make sure that we are being very clear that it's not, young mothers that we're talking about here solely, it's also young fathers. And through our work, we're very aware that often, young fathers are left out of the picture, and so it's really important for us to create this initiative that not only talked about or challenged really, as Anicia mentioned, like all the myths, the stigma, the blaming, the shaming, the stereotypes really of young parents, but part of the big problem was of who we thought about automatically when we thought about a young parent, right? And so really bringing in young fathers' voices as well as other identities that young parents may have, such as, queer, gender nonconforming, and just really ensure that we were looking at this in a more holistic way. So let me, thank you. So the next slide is really talking about, sorry. There we go. So really, part of so as I mentioned, this has been, since 2010, we launched this initiative, and part of it was really ensuring that we were engaging a lot of different folks, but we were very clear that we had to have the young parents front and center, and ensure that they were informing not only our publications, but that they were also informing the media contents that we were putting out. And so our Young Parent Leadership Council has been super instrumental in helping us draft, talking points, draft messaging as well, because we wanted to make sure that we were being really reflective of their experiences. And so here you see an image. We've had 4 iterations of our, or 4 cohorts, I should say. And this is our latest cohort of our YPLC members, and they're all in Madera, California. And Madera is in the Central Valley. It's about 5 hours from LA, which is where CLRJ is based. And another important thing, obviously, is California is an extremely large state, and we wanted to make sure that we were able to capture as much as possible the different experiences of our young parents living in different regions. And so, for example, like an experience that a young parent may be facing in an urban setting looks very different than a rural setting. And so these 5 wonderful young mamas are from the rural part of the state, and they are currently working on another publication that's going to be a bit more, it's going to be more accessible to young people themselves. And so this is what I mean by, like, every year that we've been able to engage with them, we've been able to produce something that is, is really useful, not only for our partners or policy, but then also for their colleagues, right? The young people that they also represent. And so I'm going to go over to our next slide and really just talk a little bit more about our California Young Parents Day. And we didn't have a Young Parent Leadership Council from the very beginning, but when we were super inspired by YWU, by Young Women United, when they passed their resolution, their memorial in 2012, we hadn't really done much around an actual concrete policy. We had done a lot of policymaker engagement, really talking about the importance of keeping the programs that were for young people funded, because, in California, we've been going through a lot of budget cuts with programs, and so we were trying to make sure that, further cuts weren't being made to these programs, and really amplifying voices, taking young parents to speak in legislative visits, taking young parents to speak in policy briefings, but we really didn't have a concrete, policy that we wanted to work on. And so, inspired by YWU, taking the lead from Young Women United, we also, with the guidance of our Young Parent Leadership Council, also decided that a resolution in California would be a great statement to make. As Anicia said, it was also really important for us to make sure that we had paved the way, that we had been talking about our community, that we had been talking about our partners, because we wanted to make sure that when we had this resolution out, that we had as much support as possible in order to make sure that it passed. So here are just a couple of lines just to give you an idea, and at the end of the presentation there's a link to the actual, the full language, but really, again, going back to all young people needing encouragement and support from all aspects of society, right, including families, school settings, young people of all economic backgrounds, gender identities and expressions, sexualities and abilities, and immigration statuses, having the right to parent the children they have. And all youth, including those who are pregnant and parenting, having the right to resources needed, right, to really achieve their education and career goals, but then also other tangible services that are super important in order to be able to achieve that, which includes childcare services, parenting courses, healthcare, housing assistance, and really other economic opportunities. And so the way a resolution works in California is it's not exactly a law, but what it is, it's kind of like you can look at it as a framework, so that when we are able to create other more concrete laws that have funding tied to it and resources tied to it, we can look back and say, look, in this resolution, this is what you committed to doing, this is what you said you would do, and this is why these policies are important to pass. And so some examples in conjunction in having this resolution, other policies wins that we've had at CLRJ include, for example, the lactation accommodation bill, which now in the state of California, young people in high school settings will now have a safe place to either pump or to breastfeed their babies, whereas before, you know, there wasn't really a space designated for that. There wasn't, you know, a room, there wasn't a facility where they could store their milk. And actually another member of our YPLC testified in front of a hearing, you know, sharing her story about how difficult it was to have to lug around a cooler, you know, from class to class to class, because she was really committed to nursing her child. And so we feel that, you know, there was momentum through, you know, again, through this initiative that we've been working on, and there was momentum in order for, you know, not only policymakers, but just, you know, the society at large to really see the benefit of supporting a policy such as this. Another policy win was our California Healthy Youth Act, which now sex education, comprehensive sex education is now mandated in the state of California. And it really also like brought to current you know, terms the curriculum, because it was 20 years old, it was super outdated, and it wasn't being taught in the way that, you know, young people deserve to obtain information. And so we also feel that because of the way, you know, we're really trying to ensure that we're, you know, changing the narrative around how we talk about young people's sexuality in general, and, you know, but young parents in particular, and really ensuring that people understand the benefit, right, of having these types of policies. And so I do want to say it wasn't quite easy. We did propose to have this resolution passed in 2014, and it became a bit challenging for us to find a champion right away, because the language of some legislators shared with us that the language seemed a bit, quote unquote, encouraging of young parenting. They felt that perhaps they would be perceived as being okay, quote unquote, with you know, more pregnancies and more births. And so then we realized that, you know, we still had some work to do, and really, again, understand the value of, like, the bodily autonomy of all people, and young people being able to make the decisions that they make and not being punished or being put in a, you know, in a certain box and kind of put as an outcast because of that decision that was made. And so ultimately, we're very excited. Our resolution did pass last year. After 3 years of, like, just constantly forging on, keep talking about, you know, the importance of shifting the narrative on how we talk about young parents, engaging with our young people, engaging with our community, engaging with our policymakers, engaging with our partners, you know, just to really ensure that you know, we were pushing back, right, on what typically, or how typically we treat and perceive our young parents. And so unfortunately we didn't, it didn't pass. So again, inspired by YWU, we wanted to keep the same date as their memorial. So our celebration is also August 25th, and our resolution didn't pass until afterwards. So this year is our first official year of actually getting to celebrate it, and we're super excited about the activities that we're going to be doing leading up to it, and we'll share a little bit more about that later. So to wrap up, you will be hearing from Elia, but I thought it would be lovely to show one of the social media content that we developed was also memes. So as Alicia pointed out, generally when we see a campaign around young parents, there's these very negative images, you know, very horrible statistics, and a lot of times untrue, right, as she was pointing out. But in our case, you know, we don't have a lot of money to create like a big campaign with, you know, billboards all over, but we decided, you know what, we can do something on social media. And so we have been creating these memes, and these are members of our YPLC, and these are their words. So for Elia, young mothers are strong, beautiful, and valuable, and that's her very cute 1-year-old, at the time, Abraham. And then the other image is our young father Manuel with his daughter Abigail. And you know that checklist that had, you know, all those other things? Well, our checklist says young parents are responsible, nurturing, and inspiring. And so this is what we mean by being able to, you know, really change the language and then really be able to uplift, right, the accomplishments and celebrate our young parents. And so I'm going to leave you, I believe this PowerPoint will be shared. So here are some of our media content that the young parents have helped us create, and also some advocacy tools if you all are interested in learning a little bit more about the resolution. We also have written out our statement of principles and praxis, and we have a number of publications. And so we also, we would love to have you follow us. So here are some of the different platforms that we're on. My contact information is on the left-hand corner. Now I'm going to invite Elia to, you know, share a little bit about her experience. She's a little nervous, but I know she's got this. Share a little bit about her experience, not only with the YPLC, but, you know, why she was inspired to advocate on behalf of herself and other young parents. Thank you. This is Elia.
Hi. Do I start? Okay, so hi, my name is Elia Garcia, and I am part of CLRJ Justice for Young Families since 2014. So now I have a 4-year-old son, and I have advocated on behalf of myself and other teen parents who haven't got a chance to get their voice heard. When I was in high school, I had like a little incident. I had gotten a 3.85, I believe, and that meant I had to get honor roll, but they didn't like recognize me in front of everybody because I was a teen parent, and I got pretty pissed. So I told my teacher, you know what, I'm gonna go talk to the principal. She's like, no, don't go. And I was like, I'm gonna go, like, you know, like they're not gonna discriminate towards me in that way. So I did go talk to him, and he was shocked. He's like, I can't believe you came to talk to me. And I was like, well, I did feel pretty bad because I did get pregnant at a young age, but I wanted to show everybody that I was able to move forward and I was able to get an education, because not a lot of people they have a chance to continue school. In our school, we had daycare, and we had it was called the Pregnant Minor Program, and while they did help us out a lot. And when I did go talk to the principal, he did give me my honor roll certificate, but he didn't give it to me in front of everybody. And I felt really I felt kind of sad about it, because I can't believe like a school is actually discriminating you in that way. And after that, so I wanted to show everybody that I was not, I wanted to prove everybody wrong, that I was going to continue my education and I was going to graduate high school. Sorry. So this motivated me a lot to continue working with CLRJ, because not a lot of our students in our school were able to have a voice like I was able to have one. So while working with CLRJ, I got more comfortable about myself and being a young parent, because I was always being discriminated and looked down upon. When I told my counselor I was pregnant because I wasn't able to do PE, she told me that there was many other different things I could do, like have an abortion or have the baby. And I felt like that was pretty dumb of her to tell me, because she's my counselor. Like, why are you gonna come and tell me, oh, you can have an abortion? Like, I wanted to keep the baby. She did mention like, oh, you're too young, you might not finish school, but I knew that being in that program and being with CLRJ, I was able to move forward. With CLRJ, I've worked in the magazine. It was a zine. I've done policy briefing, legislative visits, and the one that I enjoyed the most was the magazine. It was put together by myself and other 6 girls, and we gathered like information about other organizations that helped teen parents. We wrote what we wanted to achieve and what we achieved and what was our goal in our lives and in our kids' lives. And we mainly did it because there's other teen parents that I know, like around where I live, and they actually haven't got a chance to connect with an organization that will actually help you. And well, yeah, I'm just glad I got a chance to have my voice heard and advocate for teen parents. I think it's really important for us to have the day of recognition, because teen parents are always getting stereotypes. They're always getting blamed for, you know, having a baby. There's always like those nasty things they do, the images they write about, you know, like, you're not, if you get pregnant, like from Mean Girls, I don't know if you guys seen it, where it says if you get pregnant, if you have sex, you'll get pregnant and die. Like, I think that's dumb. Like, they should have more positive information, like about, you know, that there is clinics. Like when I was going to the clinic, my doctor was like, why are you so young? Like, why are you asking me? You know, just do your job. So I feel like it's really important for us to have that day, to show other teen parents that it's not okay to have a baby at a young age, but it is it's for you to, I don't know how to say it, like to uplift your experiences that you've gone through and share your stories. That's about it. Thank you.
So that was Elia, and as you can see, she was a little nervous. And again, I'm gonna close it up real quick, with just letting you know that what she was saying about the child care and the PMP program, actually she just informed me this morning that that program and the child care is no longer available at her school. And so for us, that was really again, it was really devastating to hear, because a lot of young parents that we talked to said that the reason they were able to stay in school was because of this child care program. They felt like they were close, so, you know, they can check in on their children. And a lot of times that's not the stories that you hear, right? That, you know, that they, just like any other parent, you know, that may not be in a school setting, but in a work setting, you constantly think about the well-being of your child. And so we really think that's really unfortunate. We're going to figure out now, you know, what we can do to support the school district to keep that program for the young parents. But it was really interesting for us to learn, you know, that despite, you know, this huge support that this program had, that there still wasn't, you know, enough, you know, funding saved for it. So I'm going to leave it there, and I believe Marie-Louise is going to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I am, all right, so you guys should be able to see my screen right now. I want to say thank you to everybody so far. I know that Denicia really spoke a lot to what we were doing in New Mexico and have been doing in New Mexico as far as supporting young parents. I had worked with the New Mexico Grads Program for about 10 years now, and this program is in 32 school districts across the state of New Mexico. And through this program, we have been able to serve expectant and parenting teens as well as their children. 17 of those programs have on-site child care available, and the services that the young parents are able to receive in school and on-site at their child care or with partnerships within their community have really made monumental differences. We know that supporting a young family is key in them obtaining their education, if that's a goal that they have, and to ensure that they have access to safe and reliable child care has been key in what we've been able to do across the state. So our partnership with Young Women United has been pretty significant. We've worked together over the years, and as Denicia had mentioned, we were able to pass the Day in Recognition of Young Families on August 25th, and so this is a really big celebration where our sites locally are able to team up with Young Women United, local legislators and representatives, to highlight the significance of the work that young parents are doing by continuing their education, by parenting young, and celebrate that their children are loved. And we really want to accentuate that young families and all families come in various walks of life, your background, your ethnicity, your race, nothing should determine the quality of care that you receive and support that you receive from your communities. So thankfully, New Mexico is very connected and deeply rooted in supporting our families. What we've been able to do is work together nationally. Actually, Young Women United had referred me to Natasha Viana, and I am one of 7 young mothers who are co-founding mothers of the No Teen Shame campaign. I have here our website, so if you have not checked it out, we really encourage you to do so. But what we did is we had actually started our campaign to address the Candice Foundation. In May 2013, we really felt like teen pregnancy prevention messaging had become quite negative, and part of the messaging that we found with the Candice Foundation really was intended to prevent teen pregnancy. However, it was deeply stigmatizing and negative and hurtful to parents who were choosing to parent their children. And so we had petitioned and started thunderclaps and garnered national support to ask the Candice Foundation and Neil Cole at that time to redesign their social media, their media campaigns, and their imaging. We weren't successful in getting a meeting with him, but we were extremely successful in just gathering allies from across the nation who all agree that teen pregnancy prevention is possible without shaming and harming young parents and their families. And so throughout the past several years, we've been able to collaborate and share some imagery and messaging that has really changed the way that organizations hopefully are working with young parents, and also developing strategies and techniques to support educational awareness and resources. So this is our website. We really encourage everybody to get on there if you can. And it's just got a little bit of information on who we are, why we chose to have a social media campaign, and what our story is. All of us were teen mothers ourselves. All of us are from different parts of the nation and country and have various backgrounds and various influencing factors in our lives. However, we share commonly that we have all experienced shame and stigma due to our age of pregnancy, and not only us, but also our children. So we've been very fortunate to be able to collaborate with each other and organizations to bring awareness and also bring education. So if you go through the website, you can see some of our information, but we also have free downloads, and this is something that's really helpful to organizations who would like to change some of their messaging. We understand that sometimes the messaging that we have is just old and it's outdated and hopefully is unintentional. And so when we take a step back and we look at that, and we really encourage organizations to work with youth and say, how does this make you feel? What does this look like for you? And so we have some examples of some images that we have that are free and downloadable. And I'm going to actually pull a couple up for you. And this one reads, Stigma in Education. So despite clear protections under federal law, Title IX, educators and school administrators often coerce teen parents out of school, reduce supportive interactions with the student, and violate student privacy by disclosing private health information to other staff. For expectant and parenting students, dropping out of school is often a protective measure against stigmatization and its harmful effects. And you guys have just heard a story of a school counselor who was, giving unsolicited personal feedback, and those things are not uncommon. Several of us have dealt with our own issues and coercions and staying in school or transferring to an alternative school. And when you're in a position of authority in a school setting, in a healthcare setting, in an organizational or resource setting for a young person, it's really important that the way that we speak to them is without assumption, and that we aren't projecting our own personal beliefs onto them. When it comes to stigma support, this is a great image. It says, highly respected people and organizations may implicitly stigmatize young parents, while family and friends may isolate teen moms for fear of association. This shift in support can make teen parents begin to adapt a belief that poor treatment is deserved. When young parents are constantly faced with discrimination, they feel isolated and uncomfortable seeking support when they need help or are facing danger. So we know that teen pregnancy prevention, and we know that the efforts and the strides that have been made are not because of harmful messaging, are not because we are pushing people away, but we know that it's because of continued and enhanced access to education and services. So we want that to continue. We want people to feel welcome when they come into a school. We want people to feel welcome when they go take their children to the doctor, or advocate for their own health needs, and not feel that they're being judged or stigmatized, which will prevent them from accessing services. We don't want that to happen, so we want to be really mindful of the supports that we're intentionally giving young parents. When it comes to teen pregnancy prevention, we encourage everyone to avoid using stereotypes, racism, sexism, classism, ableism, shame, stigma, or any comparisons to any other group of people. We ensure that conversations are genuinely open and honest, and we expect difficult questions and prepare to answer them directly. Sometimes not having an answer is okay, and saying, I don't know the answer to that, let me get back to you. We want to focus on the need for accurate information regarding LGBTQ inclusive sexual education and dialogue on healthy relationships, safe sex, and consent. And we want to be aware of the potential macro influences on teen pregnancy, such as abuse, poverty, homelessness, sexual exploitation, and lack of access to resources, healthcare, and quality education. Acknowledging that young people have the right to their autonomy and agency over their own sexual health. So really empowering young people with the education and resources to navigate healthcare settings and educational settings with information and education is really, really important. And to become an ally for young parents, we challenge everyone, including ourselves sometimes, to reevaluate and refocus as an organization and as a person, to challenge your own biases and assumptions. Be aware of the macro influences and macro aggressions. Speak out against harmful messaging and articles. We want to offer young parents meaningful seats at the table. We don't want to exploit young parents. We don't want to use their what they're sharing with us in a way that is going to be harmful. So we really want to constantly check in with the parents that we're speaking to and make sure that everyone is still on the same page, and be able to learn from them and let them be the experts teaching us. Young parents need to be compensated for the work that they do, for their time and their stories and their sharing. We need to be inclusive of our children and our co-parents. We know that families come in many different ways. One of the things that has been super empowering for me as a young parent, no longer a young parent, but as a parent, is to really be able to feel comfortable owning what my family looks like. And that's something that No Teen Shame and my work with New Mexico grads has really empowered me to feel okay and secure and safe in that. We want young parents and the allies we work with to trust in the ability to make the best choices for ourselves, and empower and encourage them through education, and respect our lived experiences as valuable expertise. So if we go back to our website here, you'll see that when you go up, you are able to contact us as well. So we really encourage you to do that. We also are available on Twitter and Tumblr. And if you use the hashtag #NoTeenShame, you can tag images, you can ask us questions, and communicate with us directly. But this is a great way to go get to us through our website, and we'll ask you if you'd like to be connected to our news list. And then this is for anybody who would like to become an ally. So throughout the year, we're able to take a moment and just analyze where we are and make sure that we're connected to organizations and allies who support our mission, but also that we're able to work together with them. And so we want to ensure that we're continuously building and working with our allies. And so we really encourage you, if you would like to connect with us, to please do that. And you can do that through our website. And then finally, we have also here, we have some of the media that we have. So we've all done individual and combined work together We have interviews and press releases and articles that have been written that are all related to being a teen mother or a teen parent and to supporting young parents and to teen pregnancy prevention. So we encourage you to read that and just check us out on the website. We're really excited to be a part of this movement, and we're really fortunate to work with the Healthy Teen Network and other allies and organizations to really understand that every parent, regardless of their age, has a voice, a story, and it's powerful and meaningful, and we really want to make sure that we're bringing as much awareness and attention in a positive way to supporting young parents. Hi all, this is Benicia again, and I just wanted to, let me make my video chat a little bit smaller, but I just wanted to say quickly, because I forgot this too, that young parents becoming our leaders and our elected officials is a critical part of culture shift too, and I just love these photos of young parents and their babies on the state house floor, so I wanted to share that with you all. And then let you know that we're just around the corner from Young Parents Day, and part of our celebrations, like I said, we host actual in-person celebrations throughout the state of New Mexico, but we also, wanted to have a bigger national and international reach to bring young parents together, to bring allies and organizations together. So every year on Young Parents Day, August 25th, we host a international Twitter chat called Respect Young Fams. Mary Louise and all the mamas and parents from No Teen Shame usually join us. California Latinas for Reproductive Justice is usually a collaborating partner. And we'd love to have you or your organization as a collaborating partner for that as well. If you're interested, you can obviously check out our information on Twitter, but if you'd like to be part of the process that's forming the questions, that's putting the chat together, you can email esperanza@edodge@youngwomenunited.org, and there is that information for you there, and we're happy to send it out after the chat as well.
And I just want to make a quick announcement that as we mentioned earlier, this is going to be our very first year actually celebrating our Young Parents Day of Recognition. And so we just wanted to let you all know that if you're interested in being part of, we're thinking of things like thunderclap, Twibbins. We're gonna roll out like a whole social media campaign leading up to the date. We would love you all to follow us. There was a great video that the young parents created themselves, giving other young parents advice and words of encouragement. And then we also created another video of supportive adults talking about why it's important to respect and uphold the rights and celebrate young parents. And so we hope that you're able to plug in that way as well. Thank you.
Great. So I know we had some questions in the chat. And the first is, can you explain why you chose the date you did for the Awareness Day? Would it be beneficial for other organizations across the country to align with that date? And I can go first, and then maybe you can join Anna too. But I think the first year that we did it, we were just looking at our organizational calendars, honestly, and making some judgments about what we could do in capacity and that sort of thing. But we also, wanted to time it. Our school year usually starts at the beginning of August, so it would be in a back-to-school time that teachers could share it in the schools, but folks also wouldn't be too busy. So, and also August is just a beautiful time in New Mexico. We were honored and uplifted by the fact that CLRJ chose to collaborate with us on this and follow in our footsteps, and really excited when they chose August 25th as well, because it means we can just create more of that movement and echo chamber. So if anyone else is interested in doing that, we would absolutely be honored for you to join us on August 25th, if that's at a citywide or statewide or region-wide level. That would be incredible.
I think too, just from my perspective of being in the classroom and working with school sites, it's a great time of year teachers and students are coming back in, just like Denicia had said, but also to connect with legislators. So if you are dependent on any sort of legislative or state funding, this is a really great time before your legislators go into session. So for us, sometimes it's even a little bit late, but it's just great to just make some personal connections in the classroom. You're at the beginning of the year, you're refreshed, everybody's pretty motivated. And so it's just a really, I think it's a great proactive way to make those kind of connections with local and state and even national legislators and representatives.
Do you want to jump in on this one, Anna?
Sure.
Okay.
I just wanted, can you hear me? Yeah. I just wanted to, again, one of the important the one important values that we have is alliance building and ensuring that we are doing work in solidarity, you know, across different movements. And so when we saw the August 25th date, for example, everything that Denicia said in terms of like how it aligned in terms of the school year and all of those things made sense. But more importantly, we didn't want to pick another day that was kind of like in competition or confusion, you know, with the work that, you know, a lot of us had already been talking about, but that YWU really spearheaded in that way. And so this is why I think it's important, you know, I'm so excited to be on this webinar and that other folks are hearing the different work that organizations are doing, because there is way to be able to align ourselves. There is way, I think we've all made ourselves available to be supportive of any of the efforts that are happening at the local or at the state level. Because ultimately what we want, I mean, again, culture shift doesn't happen in silos, right? It happens when we're all, you know, doing our little piece and our part of our regions and really connecting with the experts on the ground, which are our young people. And so how wonderful is it to see, and I think it's super, I mean, I don't want to speak on you know, for Elia, but I also think it's really great to see that it's not just, you know, her community or the state of California. It's also something that's across, you know, the U.S. and internationally, because as Anita mentioned, like the Twitter chat is an international tweet chat. So I think it's really heartening to also see that there's a bigger support network outside of you know, of who they know. So thanks.
Great, and I have a question here from Brittany. So we're a nonprofit in Michigan who's created a Michigan Youth Parenting Awareness Day. Thanks for your help, and passed a resolution about Michigan Young Parents Day. We'd love to do more with this. Like, did you get organizing in-person events, setting up meetings with legislators? My question is, where did you get the funding to do this work? So first of all, Brittany, that's exciting news and awesome to hear, and I think definitely it will be exciting for this year's Twitter chat to compile a list of cities and states that are have passed this, are working on it, or are thinking about it. We did do all of the above, so yeah, we have organizing in-person events and meeting with legislators. Young Women United as an organization as a whole is mostly funded by private foundations. So we get money from national foundations to do our work and you know, make sure that you know, even when we're writing a proposal around contraception or abortion access or even substance use, we write very holistic proposals that include a whole breadth of our work, including young parents' work. I know that's not possible for everyone, so we are definitely leveraging our partnerships here in the state of New Mexico to the best of our ability. So Mary Louise and I and my colleague Esperanza have been collaborating with the New Mexico Public Education Department and really taken them, gotten them to take up the issues of young parents and use state resources to do that as well. So they now host I don't know how often it happens, maybe bi-monthly, monthly gatherings where leaders can come together to talk about young parents. And then now they also have started hosting an annual Young Parents Conference. And so that was one way that we said, you know, this responsibility just doesn't exist within Young Women United or within our funding networks, but we really wanted to use our state resources as well.
And just to tag team on that answer, for you, Brittany. What we've also been able to do, New Mexico grads, but really the New Mexico Public Education Department was able to collaborate with the state as well, and they've done for the last 2 years town halls. And so we've hosted them in Albuquerque, and we've had our programs, Young Women United, several programs from across the state organizations and agencies that come, and the common message and the common theme is how do we support young parents, not just through individual organizations, but as a state. And so really to have a common platform and message, but a common space at the same time where that is purposeful and intentful to do that. So I think in some ways to be able to tie into what you may already have going on in Michigan could be helpful when it comes to funding. So what organizations are already available who are in somewhat of an alignment with your organization, and how can you guys collaborate together? It's a really great way to share on cost as well. So I have a question here, and it was on the website on the link for No Teen Shame. And so when you go down to do the download link for the posts and social media images, that wasn't working. It should be fixed now. So if you had any trouble doing that while we were going through it, please try it again, and it should be working. So, and I think we've had a couple comments too about working with fathers. And so I just want to speak a little bit to that as far as with New Mexico grads. And in New Mexico on a whole, I know that working with fathers is really important to the work that we do. And we know that being able to support them from birth, prenatally and throughout, whether the parents are co-parenting or whether they're together in a relationship or not, co-parenting, and to support them. And in New Mexico, we have Young Fathers program, and it's run out of Santa Fe, but it's for the whole state, and Johnny Wilson runs that, and it's been extremely helpful for New Mexico. So if you're interested in more information on that, I'm definitely available.
And we just also wanted to add on that we're very also happy that people responded very positively to the support, ensuring that we are supporting young fathers. And we do have, our latest publication is called Young Fathers Speak Out. We did a series of focus groups with young fathers in California, and it's just, again, amplifying the voice of the very unique need that young fathers have as young parents, and just, again, pushing back against this idea that young fathers are not involved or do not love their children, or all those other things that we hear. And then I do want to say that our young father, one of our more vocal young fathers that we have part of our YPLC, is a person you will see on in the cover of that publication, and he is just always super proud to distribute it to his colleagues, and it's also really sweet to see how his daughter, because his daughter is also on the cover, how excited she gets when she sees her dad and herself on that cover. So it's been quite a privilege, and it's been super a great experience learning a lot. As Mary Louise Kuti said, they're definitely teachers and experts, and I think we just really want to leave you all with we shared a lot of things, and perhaps you may feel like there's not capacity necessarily to do all of those things, but at the very least, listening, making space for young people, centering young people, I think is a good step. And I know a lot of organizations are doing that, but I think it's just really important. I'm always reminded by my young people about that. So thank you.
So it looks like we have one more question, and then we're going to wrap up, which is any tips for engaging young parents in advocacy work? I think we have a lot of parents who care about issues but are hesitant to get involved in public speaking, meeting with legislators, etc. I can go first from YWU's perspective. I think, making sure organizing isn't a one-time shot. That, oftentimes when we ask young people to participate in things, we might say, share your story as a one-time scenario, and that doesn't really set up anyone of any age for success. A lot of people have nerves around public speaking or otherwise. So when we did our Young Parents Lobbying Day, we actually had many different methodologies that the young parents could participate. We had an old school Polaroid camera, and young parents were able to take pictures of themselves and their families and put it in a little frame and write to their legislator about why it's so important to fund resources for young families. And so, you know, that gave opportunity to people who are more creative or wanted to express themselves in that way. We had speaking opportunities for people to speak in our state house in the rotunda. We set up one-on-one conversations with legislators. And I think, you know, people often make a real mistake in youth organizing by saying, you know, we want to give young people all the agency and authority in their lives and then don't prepare them. But everyone, any human being likes to be prepared, likes to practice. So, you know, before we would have organizing meetings to say who should do what and how can we split this up into different disciplines, and that makes a big difference.
I also think we do similar things with New Mexico grads and also No Teen Shame. We have social media platforms specifically because we know that it can reach across the nation and internationally, and it's easily accessible and it's free. But also with New Mexico grads, we've been able to host our own Grads Day where students are empowered to come if they want to be in person, but they can also do letter writing campaigns. They do craft projects where their children can also be involved, and they can connect one-on-one with their local and district representatives, because not only do we want them to advocate for themselves and programs that are supporting them, but they're going to be voting citizens pretty soon if they're not already. So to really teach them about government and civic involvement is pretty important.
And then for us, we ensure that, you know, one of our strategies is policy advocacy. And so when we are setting up legislative visits or we have created policy briefings, we want to make sure that we invite young parents to speak their truth, right, their story. And as, you know, Mary Louise was mentioning, it's also important to compensate. So when we do invite young parents to speak at legislative visits, we make sure to be able to provide some form of stipend for childcare, for example, because we know that can be, you know, and we pay for like transportation and things of that nature, because again, not only are we wanting to ensure that their voices are heard at this level, but that we're also aware of, like, you know, that we are compensating them for, you know, for their time. And so I think Elia wants to say a little bit something herself.
So I, as a teen parent, it is really like I would get nervous when we would go up there, but at the same time, it's like I wanted other teen parents to be able to speak about our lives, because we're the ones living it. You know, like, you know, there's good organizations that speak about it, but we're the ones going through it. We're the ones getting we're the ones getting looked down. We're the ones being, you know, discriminated. So I feel like other young parents should do it, because, you know, it's us who, we're the legit young parents. You know, we're the ones that do everything. So I think other teen parents should really try it out.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. We really just appreciate that our speakers. Thank you again to Mary Louise and Delicia and Anna and Elia for taking the time to share their experiences and their expertise with us. I want to thank my staff, Kelly Connolly and Shanice Taylor in particular, for their support for putting this together. I want to thank the participants for coming and joining and being interested in learning more about how to reframe and celebrate teen parents as we should. I think one of the most interesting, not one of the most interesting, but I think what struck me today that I want to point out is when Mary Louise said that being part of No Teen Shame has eventually helped her to accept her family configuration. And I think that in framing teen parents by including the fathers, by being gender neutral, by accepting that all kinds of young people can be teen parents, goes a long way toward that acceptance. And that acceptance is probably a first step toward feeling empowered and proud of who we are and being able to advocate for ourselves and our children. And so I hope that we can all carry forward in thinking about our language and our frames and how much they can make that difference for everybody in our work. I hope that, well, I would ask this, if anybody listening decides to do a state day or to pursue that, we'd love to hear about your efforts. We talk at Healthy Teen Network about a potential national day, and if we saw a sort of, you know, a kind of a number of state days going into place, it would make it easier for us to sort of make that case and perhaps have some success along those lines. And so finally, I would like to ask you all to consider joining Healthy Teen Network if you're not already a member, so you can continue the conversation and have access to webinars such as what you participated in today for free, and also to join us in Baltimore October 2nd through the 4th for our annual conference. And we're going to continue to talk about social norms and cultures, and I'm sure this topic will be part of that as well. So thank you all. Have a wonderful day, and enjoy your summer. Take good care.
Thank you.
I know you're